Don't have my gavel.
Fabulous.
Yeah, we'll do that. That's right. Okay, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming this evening. We appreciate that. Let me point out that we have a lot of donuts over there. Please. Please save your counsel and eat some donuts. So donuts, refreshments, cookies, etc. are over there. And also, thank you. Let me remind you that this is a formal city council meeting. It's not a workshop or a town hall. So use of cellular phones and electronic equipment is prohibited except by state law, section 551.023. Any of those uses are allowed. And rules of decorum as outlined in our code of ordinances, article 3, section 23-15. Please remain quiet in council chambers. If you need to talk with somebody, just feel free to step out, back in. So I'm going to call this meeting to order and let's say our pledges. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Okay, please be seated. Okay, we have a quorum this evening. Councilmember Sandate is off for family business. Proof of notice, City Secretary.
Thank you, Mayor. The notice for this meeting was posted by 2 p.m. on June 16th.
Okay, thank you. Any public comments?
First up, we have Billy Melton, who is a non-resident.
Okay, come on up, Mr. Milton, and just say your name into the microphone, please.
My name is Billy Milton. I reside at 1005 South Harrison Street here in Alpine next to the Chubia Drive. I'm out of Ward 4. And I don't agree with annexing the property there for the new Skyway Gardens. I think since in the last 2 years, since they opened the last one, the traffic going through there and all the construction, I get a lot of dirt, can't keep my cars clean, can't enjoy being on my back porch. And I've asked people when it's going to get paved with no good answers. So I hope y'all would think of getting that paved before you approve anything like that.
All right, thank you.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other public comments?
That concludes public comment.
Okay, no presentations, recognitions, or proclamations.
Mayor, I would like to ask that we move 2 items out of order of the agenda. The first being the Alan Bojorquez Law Firm, which is action item number 4. And I'm going to take a wild guess on the second one, the annexation for Skyway Gardens.
We need the public hearing and action item 1 moved.
Okay, which action item is that?
Action item 1.
One, okay.
If we could do action item 4, Mr. Bojorquez is available online until 6.
Okay. All right, so let's start with action item number 4. I need council's approval. I need a second. All right, any discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, unanimous.
The second of that.
Rick Stephen, or,
He did first, Mike.
okay. All right, so action item number 4.
A little background on that. In 2021, the city of Alpine hired Bojorquez Law Firm as special counsel to assist with a possible conflict of interest. They've actually been our special counsel the whole entire time because we do have a standing agreement. In light of the resignation that was given to us at the last meeting, I did reach out to Mr. Bojorquez and inquire if they would have the ability to take us on as another city. They currently do have attorneys in El Paso, as well as Austin, San Antonio area that could come virtually or in person. They would help us with everything listed as a city attorney. The agreement is included in the council packet with 2 amendments. It would reflect city attorney instead of special counsel, and their rate structure changed a little bit. You'll notice that the rate structure is tiered. So it goes from basically a senior executive attorney all the way down to a legal aid. So we do have a little bit more variety when it comes to being billed in charge. Mr. Bojorquez is on Zoom. If you have any questions or want to discuss with him a little bit more detail, he would provide us the same services as the city attorney.
Okay, so I need a motion.
So move.
I need a second.
Do you want discussion first?
Motion first.
Yeah.
I did it backwards. I'm
It's
sorry.
okay.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
I've been gone.
It's
She's
like
been
a sweet guy.
submersed in legal with TML. All right, I need a second, please. All right, any discussion?
Yes. I have comments or questions, but you don't have to call on me first, but it's up to you.
Okay, go ahead.
There you are, Alan. I can see a little picture of you. My name is Rick Stevens, representing Ward 5. Help me understand, who else does your firm represent?
Mayor, council.
Municipal
IBD.
cities in our area.
Sure. We represent about 45 cities statewide. And in your area, we are the city attorney for Presidio and for Marfa. And in both cases, it was a similar arrangement to what you're contemplating tonight. They retained us as special counsel. We helped them out for a while. And then eventually the city council chose to make us city attorney. We represent about 4 or 5 cities in El Paso County as well. And that's probably where a lot of the in-person services will be provided from. But when it comes to ordinances, contracts, resolutions, consultation about human resources, we can do that anywhere from long distance. So that may originate in Austin.
And is there been a discussion about how you would handle or would you handle the city prosecutor responsibilities?
That has not come up specifically, but we do prosecute for Presidio and Marfa. Our prosecutor retired from the city of El Paso, and he comes from there to do it when necessary. All statewide, we still have a mixture of courts in person and virtual. We're able to do both.
Okay, so Megan, I presume that's something you work with the bench.
Yes, and so we're quite happy with virtual.
Yeah, no, I get that. I understand. So, but you guys will work that. What's been, given you're working, and I don't want to get into any specific city financials, but what has been your experience relative to the fees that get charged on a monthly basis for an organized or municipality like the city of Alpine?
Great question. It's hard for me to answer that because every city is different.
Yep.
Some use us a lot, some use us very seldom. What I can tell you is that our rates are very competitive among other municipal law firms. And this is all we do. We only represent cities. And so we're pretty efficient and we have a lot of expertise in what we do. And so you're going to have a lot of control over how much work you send to us. And you could always let us know if this is a high priority, low priority, you want a very simple answer, or it's very complex and you want a detailed research memo. And so we try to make our services fit what you're actually asking for and what you can afford.
I'm gonna add to that. So we do have a long list of needs right
Well, I know that's, which was leading to my
Yeah.
next question, is we as council and you probably need to talk about a protocol for engaging the attorney. On one hand, certainly we need to get the legal counsel we need. At the other side, we need to be able to manage our budget, and those tend to be on opposite ends of the spectrum. So we probably need, probably in the next council meeting, to have discussion about what that might look like, so that there's some accountability.
now. So I'll
It's
do the same email as I did with the ordinances, kind of a process.
okay.
That way, the way it currently stands under the old contract, the city council, the city manager, and the city secretary are the only ones allowed to contact the attorney.
No, I understand that.
So we'll put a little bit more detail into it, give you an idea of where we're at. We have not received the final invoice. So budget wise, I don't know what,
That's gonna be whatever it's gonna be. Okay, but that'll be, I think, helpful.
yes.
And then the mechanism by which we all stay up to speed on what the legal matters are, what's going through. And I presume there's a fairly efficient way, Alan, because you all represent a number of different municipal organizations. You don't always have to do a verbal presentation, but certainly being able to keep up to speed on legal matters will be helpful in the most efficient way possible.
Certainly glad to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, Councilmember Nance.
That's all I got.
The only thing I saw was the billing is in 6-minute increments, 0.10, so that's seemed pretty efficient as well. It's most hourly. Nothing else really.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Alan, Councilor Rodriguez, just wanted to thank you for jumping in and helping us out like this. You know, we did need somebody quick, and thank you for taking.
Glad to. It's been a joy working with Megan. We haven't had that many projects, but it's been great working with y'all so far.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Soto.
It's early yet, Alan. Don't get too excited. I've been on vacation, so I haven't read anything. If they come down here, do we pay them to stay? What happens then?
So yes, we would pay the travel and fees in regards to lodging and
Okay.
meals. If it coincides with another city, we may be able to share those expenses.
Well, we're gonna make
I,
it.
I don't know
coincide.
Martha's
Right,
schedule.
Mhm.
that was the only question I had.
Okay, and someone had asked on the letterhead, what would we put? Like the law firm, or would we have somebody that's typically assigned to our city?
It's the law firm that you're engaging, and I'm the one and only owner of the law firm. What we normally do when we're hired to be city attorney is we pick 3 lawyers to be your team, primary, secondary, tertiary. So there's always 3 people who know the players, they know the community, they know what the issues are. So in case someone's sick or on vacation or that sort of thing. And then beyond that, we look at the project. And if you have a pressing utility or environmental project, well, I have a lawyer who used to work for the EPA and the city of Dallas. I'll give that project to that person because it's much more efficient than having someone like me do it. But you're engaging the firm, and we'll staff it with the best members that we can, depending on what your issues are. But
Okay.
you'll always have 1 or 2 lawyers whose names you know and whose faces you're familiar with.
Okay, that's good. I also want to mention that I was in a workshop that you led not too long ago, and I'm very impressed. And then you
thank
even
you.
took time afterwards and you spent time with me and answered a detailed question for me. And I appreciate that.
I'm glad you found it worthwhile. Thank you for saying so.
Any other discussion?
Only one other question. Has your firm ever been terminated by a municipal government?
Well, I must say, yes, we actually work for politicians. Have you ever met a politician?
Careful now.
Sometimes there's elections, they change over and people want something fresh or new. And that's okay. We say thank you very much for the honor. And there's been times I've resigned and been hired 6 months later. There's times we've been let go and hired a year later, all by the same city. That does happen from time to time, yes.
That's an honest answer. Thank you.
Yeah, and that makes sense with
Yeah.
council changing over.
I know, that's what I
Yeah,
asked.
okay. All right. Any other discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, passes unanimously.
I want
So
to
we-
thank you, council, and thank Mr. Borges for being on.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Berharkis.
Thank
So
you.
we
Appreciate
approved
the vote of
addendum to
confidence.
standard terms of engagement to reflect Bartia's law firm as city attorney and amend hourly billing rates for the city of Alpine. So that was passed unanimously. All right, and so we're moving to the public hearing next.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, so public hearing to obtain citizen views and comments regarding the second and final reading of ordinance 2023-05-01. An ordinance annexing the proposed Skyway Gardens 2 development that is adjacent and contiguous territory to the city, legally described as 5 acres out of section 102, block 9, Brewster County, Texas, being a portion of that certain 10-acre tract described in volume 314, page 453, official public records of Brewster County, Texas. Do we have anybody here this evening to speak on this matter? Okay, seeing none, we will move on. And so now we're moving to action item number 1. Okay, city manager.
Approve the second and final reading of ordinance 2023-05-01, An ordinance annexing the proposed Skyway Gardens 2 development that is adjacent and contiguous territory to the city legally described as 5.0 acres out of section 102, block 9, Brewster County, Texas, being a portion of that certain 10-acre tract described in volume 314, page 453, official public records of Brewster County, Texas. Approving a service plan for the annexed area, approving a development agreement between the developer and the city, provide findings of fact, providing cumulative and severability clauses, providing an effective date.
Okay, let's do our motion first, city manager. So I need a motion.
And so moved.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion, city manager.
Hold on.
So Chris can.
I waited right real fast. I can't.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. Okay,
Judy's got the motion. I will second.
second. Okay, so Councilmember Stokes, Councilmember Stevens. Good deal. All right, city manager, did you want to give us background?
Just for those of who haven't been in attendance, this item has been on the agenda multiple times in regards to the Skyway Gardens 2. At the last council meeting, we went line by line through the development agreement and the service agreement to work out any of the conflicts and details that we needed to. The clean copy was provided to Skyway Gardens to review. They had no objections. It is now back before council for the final read.
Okay, any discussion? Stevens?
So as we talked at the last meeting, as Megan walked through all the details associated with the road, the Lake Chigia Road has been an issue about getting that paved. So I literally walked out there and measured the width of the road all the way down. Okay. According to the plat, Lake Chigia Lane, in theory, is going to be 120 feet wide. The fact is, when you go from fire hydrant to fence, the most you can get is 56 feet wide. Okay. Otherwise, you're going to end up paving over fire hydrants, or you're going to pave over mailboxes. Part of the discussion with the developer has been, hey, they're willing to pave whatever 30 feet makes sense. And so as I've coordinated with Megan, I've talked to at least two of the property owners, and they are willing to allow the city to say, yes, it already is an easement, pave where it makes sense. I've taken on the action to find out who the other property owners are, get those identified, get those to Megan, and then we will go have a meeting to say, yay, verily, here's where the road would go with the contractor who's going to lay down the paving, and get agreement, have it documented, so there's clear agreement where it would go, so we can get to, Billy Milton's comment, get the doggone road paved. Those are my words, doggone, but get the dust in. So, but it does need to get paved. There is no question about it. But I think we want to do it in the right way, and I don't think we want to put asphalt around a city fire hydrant. So that's the action that's got to get worked. The other thing that I know that needs to get worked, and I'm continuing to track with the county on making sure, actually not the county, the state, to make sure they dig out that area where the underwash, which is south on Highway 118, where all the siltas move in, they got to get that dug out and get the dirt pushed up. So when the water comes through, and actually go down to the creek, as opposed to flooding out behind where the issue is. I think the addition that the owner has done about adding the second retention pond will go a long ways, because that'll cover the water that comes in near the culverts near Lake Chigia. And I think overall it'll work out fine, but we certainly have got to get Lake Chigia paved, and I know that the contractor is ready to go do that. So that's the additional background
Okay.
and the reason I support this.
Was the county still gonna clean out the Corps of Engineer?
They're gonna clean that out as best they can, whether they can, and the timing for that. When I talked to French, he says they got a lot of work going on down south. They're repairing roads, but he says they get the opportunity to go do it. I've also coordinated with Sul Ross State University. They have a 40-ton Caterpillar that they would happy to load to just basically drive down the middle.
If I can ride behind you.
There you go, and you clear that out, because it's gonna.
I just wanna make sure we keep that on the county's list.
Always.
We're still pending a generator.
Yes, a year later.
They've only been 2 years.
Between Sul Ross, the tractor, and the county, the generator, we'll have to be able to get that.
Just got to keep it on our list. All right,
Yep.
Councilmember Nance,
After that.
Councilmember Stokes. Okay. Let's vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, 3 voted for and 1 is abstaining. All right, so that takes us back to the reports. All right, so the mayor report. So we've had budget workshops. We've had 3 of them so far. We have another one coming up on Saturday at 10 a.m. Please, please, please be there, especially if you have some kind of pet project or something that you want to make the city aware of. And there will be more coming. As we have mentioned before, Megan said this was just the first 4 and we have more in the works, correct? Correct, okay. And then also those are on the YouTube channel. Now there's something else that I wanted to mention. The last budget workshop that we had and some of the city council meetings have been poorly attended, and I've reached out to the residents to find out why, and most of them was because the meetings are too long. And on the radio this week, they said that tonight's city council meeting would be 4 hours. So I know that scared a lot of people away. And so we are diligently working to make sure that we are considerate of everybody's time. Because of this, we want to make the meetings more efficient and effective. And in that regard, we are going to put a 6-minute limit on discussions, on city staff updates and presentations. So you'll have 6 minutes. Now, if you need to extend past that and it's necessary, I can allow up to 4 minutes. If we need to go beyond that 10 minutes, then it will require a council vote. So this is a trial period. In September, October, we are going to sit down and talk about the meetings and when residents can talk and so forth and so much. So that is going to go into effect. All right, short videos. I don't know if you have caught any of the short videos. I've been making some short videos on, thank you, on Facebook regarding different topics and different things, just to keep you up to date. And I feel like sometimes that's better than to have something that's long for you to read, because I highly doubt that it gets read. Also, the city secretary, also known as our chief governance officer, and I are working on a short course that will be about 30 minutes long called Alpine City Government 101, where we will go over some of the things that are in the charter and some of the rules of procedure, some of the ordinances and stuff like that. And when you attend those courses, we will have some kind of certificate or something to give you to show your attendance. Also, keep in mind, we still have the radio show, City Talk, on Thursday, the 29th. It'll be myself and the city manager. And then there's also a new radio show called Small Town Big Stories, where we are talking, and we being myself and Martin, this isn't part of the city, are talking to residents of Alpine just to get their stories and find out things. What are they doing? What have they done in the past? It's kind of an anecdotal type thing. All right, so that's good for me. There's no city attorney report, city manager.
Honorable Mayor and Council, I'll try to keep it short. First thing on the list is the dark sky compliance, AEP and the Big Bend Conservation Alliance. I wanted to bring this up again. As you've noticed, AEP has been rolling through town, replacing our streetlight fixtures. I know that they've gone into the residential side as well, because I had an AEP truck back up into my yard. I'm super excited, a little nervous. So they're diligently working to replace as many of our non-compliant light fixtures as possible, as well as those who have registered with the Big Bend Conservation Alliance. Last year, we sent out notice to the residents that if they had a light that wasn't compliant, specifically on a street pole, like I do, it's in my backyard. They were working with us to get those replaced as well. It was a program where you could even get a little gift certificate for groceries. I'm super excited about that. We had several sign up for it, but we want to encourage more people to do it as well. So in July, we will be sending out notification again to the residents, utilizing our utility billing, reminding them, one, that there is a dark sky light ordinance, and then encouraging them to sign up to get assistance if possible. So we're really excited about that. In July of this year, it leaves us 3 years left in that ordinance to become compliant. So we're trying to encourage everyone to take the measures that are needed. Because you've seen people out and about, and with the Dollar General being built. We've had a lot of interest in it. Some people are just now receiving the letter for the commercial side, and they're asking questions. So I know Stephen Hummel, Laura Gold, and Shelley have all been out helping us with the different businesses. Are they compliant or not? They've also done a great job with training and educating not only the residents, but also our staff. We did a short little training before Bill, I never can remember his last name, Ren, retired. They did a training with our staff to be able to see what is compliant and what is not compliant. But we have new staff now. And so I know Stephen Hummel has taken his free time, just like we all have, and actually come to Alpine and shown Andrew Devaney, this is compliant, this is not compliant, looked at the different banks, looked at commercial properties, kind of driven around, which has helped educate our staff, but also having that conversation back with it. So I think the word is slowly getting out there and everyone is understanding that these changes are coming and they're asking questions and what direction they need to take. The city will also jump on that bandwagon in the next 2 years to start replacing our building light fixtures that are no longer compliant. The main push, the first go around, like I mentioned before, was the street lights, because those are the most visible. And when you drive down the street, it's not compliant. So really super excited about that. We'll send out notification next month. So expect in your water bill to get a little friendly reminder that the ordinance is in play and that if you need assistance, there may be some possible funding to help you.
Megan, I get mine online. How are we gonna see it?
We don't.
You're not.
I mean, I have.
It'll be on the, so the radio said that also when they were talking about the 4-hour meeting that we were going to have this evening, which I'm glad it didn't scare y'all away. They also said 2025 was the deadline, but that's incorrect. It's 2026.
Correct. So this is the first round utilizing our billing. So it's not going to cost the city extra, but because we're required to send out the water bills. This is really to catch those who want assistance with the street light fixtures that they have on their property. When we did the commercial, we did that with the water billing list, but we did it independently of it. So we'll do another one again independently of it, so you'll get that return. This one is right now to help with the Big Bend Conservation Alliance, working together to get more people. Like, hey, we're here to help.
All right, good deal.
Megan, how are Saros and the independent school district doing? Have they started any of it or?
Not that I'm aware of, but there are some exceptions in our ordinance for the university. I don't know about the school district. They have been given notification, but sit down conversations will start to happen.
All right, so
One question, and this might be for Shelley, would be on Presidio and Marfa. Are they on the same 5-year timelines?
Yes,
And are we about where they're
the
at?
timeline starts when the ordinances were signed, so it trickles, but roughly, yes.
Roughly estimated. And are we similarly progressing?
Yes, we just did all of the municipal streetlights in Presidio. In Marfa, there were just a few that we did, a few more to go, and we're pretty close to complete here. I talked to Blake this afternoon, and he said they're working on some stragglers, but all in all, we're doing well together.
all right, any other questions? All right, number 2.
The second item is water usage and loss by the city. So about 2 months ago, I reached out and had a meeting with the Parks Department and the Water Department, wanting to get a better understanding of our water usage on the city. And this has nothing to do with the residents. This is just internal. But I think in light of what was provided to me, it's great to sit back and have this conversation. My biggest concern the past 3 months has been our water loss, and looking at numbers and what was being provided, nothing really added up. 1 month we were short a negative like 11 million. Don't see how you can be a negative. A lot of internal cleanup, but what I did find interesting when I asked the Parks Department and the Water Department to take a Friday afternoon and go provide a list of every water leak they have. That drive around town, I'll buy you a Sonic ice cream, I don't care. I just want to know where our leaks are at, how we're monitoring them, are they in our system, how are we watering, what are we not watering, anything and everything that was water-based. It was quite interesting to find out with the Parks Department that we water all of our parks on the same day. So we water them Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, and we typically start watering them from about midnight to 6 in the morning, and they're all on the same kind of timer. This is a huge impact to our demand, which kind of explained why every night, Sunday, Monday, we started seeing these huge drops. But this also provided me some insight in how to structure this and work with the department as far as let's stagger how we water. Let's make sure that we water some parks in the evening, some in the morning, some on Tuesday, Thursdays, but also understanding what do we have on actual sprinkler systems, what is being manually done, what is a bubbler, which led to how many bubblers are broken. So when you're watering and it's a broken bubbler, it's not bubbling, a nice slow trickle, it's usually just gushing out into the tree. But this also led into our backflows. Our backflows haven't been maintained, and they're actually, we have issues with them, and this prevents the drinking water going back into our system on our irrigation side. So that is a huge undertaking that's going to cost the city a bit of money, but it has to be done. We have to be compliant just like we ask everyone else. When I looked at the water department side, I compared it with what we had in our system, and there was a handful that actually weren't work orders in our system, but there were visible repairs that needed to be made. But then it was also identifying, is this a city issue or is this a customer issue? We did have a couple of leaks on the customer side that had a huge impact into our water loss. And as a city, we ideally can go turn them off if it's impacting our system. We try not to, because we understand as a family, you need your water. You've got to cook, you've got to bathe, you've got children. But at the same time, we can't let it continuously run down the street. One of the significant ones was off of Avenue F that ran down Avenue F, cut through one of the side streets and went about 7 blocks down to the creek. And it went like that for days. Finally, on the customer side, it did get repaired. We have several fire hydrants. Everyone knows the beautiful sign on the Gallego fire hydrant that is broken. We have had a list of fire hydrants put together and sent out for requests for quotes to have a third party come in and assist us with those. They tend to take more time, and we never know what happens when you open the ground. We don't know exactly what's underneath, and we don't want to have our team all in one place at one time trying to fix one thing when we can contract it out. We do have an individual who's willing to look at that and help us with it. But there's also the understanding is when a fire hydrant gets hit by a car, it makes it a little harder sometimes to repair. So several of our fire hydrants are due to being hit by a car. Some of the other ones that came out, specifically, we had the leak behind the Civic Center. I thought it had been fixed, and one part of it had been fixed, but there was actually a second part. So for the past, like I said, several months, we've been addressing these kind of as we're going along, which kind of goes into the third item on the list. The reason why it's only registered or listed as water conservation was I was hoping that I wouldn't have to take it any further. Unfortunately, during my training and that, based on the trend with our infrastructure, based on our concerns with our water levels, primarily on the west side of Alpine, I did request that we go into a mild condition of our drought contingency. It has nothing to do with the water availability. Our equipment couldn't manage the demand, and our equipment was failing. So it was really hard for me to consider that, because I was hoping we would come out of it. So during the 2nd and 3rd week of June, last week and the week before, I requested every leak on the city side, especially on the west side of town, north and south, to be fixed. I didn't care if they were driving down the road and they saw a leak to stop and call it in, and then is it a priority? Yes, we wanted to get it fixed. We had every employee walking our main and well lines, which required getting permission from multiple property owners to ensure we didn't have a lake. Honestly, I was praying to God that there was a lake out in Sunnyfield, because that is an easy repair. That is pulling open the ground, fixing it, and then we knew where the water was going. We knew that that was our problem. We brought in Skinner's well service because we weren't sure if the pumps were operational at 100%. We found out that one of our power horse wells, Roberts number 3, was only pulling 100 gallons per minute when it typically pulled 300. That is an impact on our system. We were also losing communication with Gardner well, which means we didn't know from 1 minute to the next how much was actually being pulled out of the ground so that we could maintain our levels on this side of town. At about 9 o'clock, council did get the email saying that we were going to go to the mild voluntary conditions. We had already asked the middle school to stop watering. The Parks Department had already been asked to stop watering, specifically the west part of town. Our water system is divided into 2 fields. We have what we call the Sunny Glen area, same conversation as last year, guys. On this side of town, and then Mooskies on this side of town. Mooskies has not been to the level where it disrupts the service as we do with the Sunny Glen side of it. And all of this, it became very nerve-wracking, I'm not gonna lie, when Alpine Storage Tank, which is a 40-foot, 500,000 gallon tank, got down to below a foot of water. This is the storage tank that is located up on this hill. We couldn't meet the demand despite trying to fix leaks, despite trying to figure out anything on the city side. The well dropped to a significant level where you had employees that were up 24/7 for 4 days straight, just to maintain the tank. When a tank goes dry, you have more issues. So we didn't want to do that. It also meant that the water being pumped out of the well fields to the storage tanks in Sunny Glen, as soon as we would get any amount of water that we could move to the upper hill, we did. So every 30 to 45 minutes, we'd put in a couple feet and we'd move that couple feet. For every foot of water, we were losing about 1.5 feet. So that's when I decided to go into the voluntary and just ask people, hey, can you conserve? We are in the hotter time of year. People were watering their yards. I don't know if the changes asking for voluntary assistance or if it was just the perfect storm that had been created. But for the past 2 days, we've been able to increase the tank levels. We're not out of the woodworks. The biggest concern is the beautiful lightning that we've had this evening. When lightning strikes and hits one of our wells, it takes it out of service, which means we don't have that water source pumping into our storage tanks to maintain this part of town. I know Mr. Stevens had inquired about a few of the numbers. That's when I learned that numbers aren't probably the best to give you right now.
Okay.
Unfortunately, what was given to me, I questioned. It's like, that can't be. I didn't have time to put this together, obviously, with the deadline of the packet. But just as a visual, this is the lowest it got last week. And it's the tanks.
Those are tank levels.
Yes. So this is Upper Hill Tank that services the city of Alpine's west side of town.
Yeah.
The black is 0.
Is that a graph showing the last week, the last
So
month,
this is
the last?
from May 5th till June 20th.
Okay.
And then we broke it down monthly. I wanted to really look at trends. And so this is what we've been focused on, is to see the ups and downs. So you can see in May, we had significant dips. You can see that we had another one. We can actually pinpoint as we go through these and determine, is this a leak? I prayed this was a lake in Sunny Glen, and it wasn't. I can't tell you if the voluntary actions have been, or if it's just all the measures we've taken, but we've slowly started to move back up, but we still have huge dips. So the dips are what scare us if we can't account for what's going on, which typically is where your demand is at. But I want to make sure from our standpoint that it's not a city issue. It's not that we have a water leak or something that's pulling the water. We looked at it from large time frames. We looked at it from smaller time frames to show you more detail of how low it got. All of these ups and downs is someone manually taking control of the system. So this is one person up every day, every night, making sure Sunny Glen has 5 feet, we push 3 feet to Upper Hill. Then we let Sunny Glen fill back up. Sunny Glen has 8 feet, we pushed 5 feet. We took it to the lowest we could take it without damaging the system. So we looked at everything to kind of get an understanding of where we were at. Anyone ever want to few moments of your time, I can show you, it's actually quite fascinating. You can see from month to month, all of our huge dips. And we can target whether that's a leak. I mean, that's the key indicator. Christmas, that's what happens. It takes a huge dip and we know. The reason why we went this direction was because we couldn't fill the tank. And at some point, we were afraid the water would just stop. So we wanted everyone to voluntarily cut back, assist the city, but we're not giving up. We're still addressing every leak and concern that we can possibly find. This is why Daughtery Well was important at the time, still is, trying to find additional backups. We lose a well during a lightning storm like we did last year when we lost 2 at the same time. Our production decreases significantly. Our storage tank can only hold so much, and we move them from one set of storage tanks to another set of storage tanks. So once those dry up, if we can't keep them, they call it recharged or full, then the main one that actually distributes to all of the citizens and the residents in this part of town go without. So unfortunate call that had to be made. But in the end, it definitely has helped us. I'm very grateful that people are conserving, that we were able to get Skinner to come in and adjust the well so that it could produce better. We're assessing all of our other wells. We're ensuring that we have backups where we're taking every measure. It's just, we don't know what the summer is gonna bring.
Well, I want to thank the employees, especially the ones who were up for 4 days straight doing this, and we really greatly appreciate them. And then I want to thank the residents too for all your water conservation measures. It matters. It's important. Okay, Councilmember
So
Stevens.
questions, water capacity. So we got a plan for 3.9 million gallons a day. What is our water capacity?
We are trying to figure that out because all of the meter readings that would show that it should be 3.9. It really should be.
Yeah.
And that's with everything we currently have in place. So we're asking Skinner to assist us with making sure every pump is pulling at its full capacity.
Okay, so
Because if it's not, then we're not at 3.9.
I understand that. So knowing what our capacity is really kind of important.
Yes.
Second thing is, what's our water consumption each day?
So that's where those reports would have come in handy.
Yep.
We know what's being consumed from what we bill. But when the reports were given to me today, it was unfortunate that probably due to the switching of administrative assistants.
Yep.
Some of the numbers are definitely not correct.
So and the reason I ask is, over the last decade, we've had capacity up to 3.9. The most we've ever used on any one day has been 2 million gallons. Our water conservation plan, as you all know, says you hit 90%. And also our water conservation plan says we have a 17.4% loss in the system, which is what you're trying to address. It almost makes sense, in my mind, for us to have kind of a water game plan and maybe a workshop to really allow us to get up to speed on what's going on. You're trying to work the day-to-day, Drew's off trying to work it, but there are clearly some issues we don't understand. And given the budget cycle we're going through right now, we don't want to continue to endure this as one of the top 3 is water.
No, because we had hoped not to be in this position.
I know, but we are where we are. And further, since we don't have the ability to process affluent water, that says the golf course is sucking up a lot more water as well out of the aquifer. And I don't know what we were doing, what, 40 to 50,000 gallons of affluent water a day?
Yeah.
So throw that in the mix. Well, that's only 5%. Nonetheless, it's a big number.
It is for us, yes.
So given all that, when do you think you'll be far enough along with Drew and team to come back and share with us? Here's what we know, here's what we don't know, and here's how we see things going forward from the budget standpoint.
I think that's going to be a hard one to answer because looking at how the data was being collected and how it was being reported, we're basically going to start from square one.
So if you got to start from square one, just make that assumption, start going forward.
So then you're looking at a minimum of 3 to 4 months to get the data.
So
collected.
we're not going to have any data for a budget relative to this. And that's, so not wanting to shoot anyone in the process, it'd certainly be nice to know how we got into this situation, because we used to do well readings on a monthly basis.
So all the well readings and the data is there. It just has not been inputted, and based on the spreadsheet that was provided, I don't know the person's logic in their formulas. Usually it's really easy to figure out.
Yeah, this is a straightforward element. I mean, that's just a
But
matter.
there's a lot of ifs.
Okay, well, some where we and the residents are looking for answers to questions.
Same here.
Yeah, and I know you are. You're working it diligently and Drew's working it.
So 18 and 19 and 20, based on those numbers, we were averaging between 8 and 13 million a month. I think the highest it got one month was maybe 16 million
What,
gallons a month
of,
of water.
so 18 million gallons of loss.
No, of actual metered, registered,
Usage.
produced water.
So 18 million gallons a month divided by 3 or 30, says we're gonna produce in how much a day?
You know, I'm gonna have to put, it's after 5, I don't calculate.
Pull out your calculators.
So I am.
I'll leave that to somebody else.
Yeah.
About 600,000.
Which is nuts.
So that's where we're like one extreme
Yeah.
on having the low level to all of a sudden having these huge high levels.
So if we're only producing 600,000 gallons a day, we have a bigger issue than we'd even contemplated, which says, according to our water conservation plan, which was put together in 2005, we are significantly below any level that was ever contemplated.
Correct.
So
Nothing adds up right now.
Nothing adds up.
So it's basically starting from scratch and going back and having to build up our own trend to look at demand based on the information that they do have and putting it into an Excel spreadsheet with usable formulas.
So who's gonna work that out?
That's the question.
I'm not trying to, if we need to get people in the community who are really good at this stuff so that you don't have to do it, and they can take data, input it, and then you're able to look at data that's of value to you, then let us know. We'll figure out how to get you the help.
Yes.
So I know Andrew's working on it. As of 4/14, I have a new spreadsheet here.
Yep.
It's just unfortunate, like going back to 18 to now, the numbers are so significantly different.
I know we do have people in the community, so that's a great
Well, they're gonna
idea.
do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we can get you help on that. There's so many other things.
Well, but without water,
Yeah,
the city dies.
Yeah,
I mean,
we
really,
died
we
without the
die.
water. Yeah.
And for us as a community to talk about this and not know what our water capacity is.
So the data has been collected. It's putting it in a usable form.
I understand. And so we had to work really hard to get that in usable form fairly quickly. We ought to know every day how much water we're delivering to the city. Every day.
Councilmember Nance, did you?
Well, a couple questions on that I would have is the report that you said we have basically two water systems, the Muskies and then the other one. And is that report the total aggregated data, or does that system disaggregate the data between the two?
Between the two.
So that data is the,
Sunny
Yes.
Glenn?
So actually, the different colored lines are the different.
Ah,
Yeah, most consent.
oh, okay, so the other one was up high on that, the other line. The other one dropped and is the one we're dealing with this thing right
So
now.
the red one that was doing all the ups and downs, that's the main concern.
can we get copies of those graphs and can we put it on the city website too? Thank you.
My opinion, you put that data out there, you're gonna create more questions we have answers for.
It's very confusing because there's no time, there's no
Yeah.
understanding, there's no explanation.
Yeah,
It would be a full-blown
Okay.
study session.
yeah, you're gonna get the world going nuts over it. So.
Good point.
I don't know if
Councilmember
it's a stupid
Rodriguez.
question, but is it more usage up at Sunny Glen? Why is it that we're having all the problems with that one and not like with Moose Keys and?
So the past 2 summers, it's been the equipment. It's just not producing to the level that's supposed to be, or we've lost it. So last year we lost 2 wells at the same time, which means they were pulling 0. And you had 3 trying to make up for all 5. And so just there was no way we could do it. This year, we realized that one of them, in about April, we noticed some fluctuation, but it would go back up. That just wasn't, it's not pulling out the capacity it should. And then we have had leaks. Like I said, I prayed for the lake, but we didn't have it. But we've been addressing all the leaks because even though the little leak doesn't seem like it's an impact, but it can be. Because we don't know what's going on underneath. So a little trickle coming up out of the ground doesn't mean that the whole entire beneath it is a complete pond.
So can we not track from tank to tank?
From this side to this side,
SCADA, we have this great SCADA system. We can track what comes out of the well into the tank.
yes,
We ought to be able to track from tank to tank
yes,
and tank to tank
yes,
and tank to the hill.
yes,
We ought to know, that ought to give us a clue about where leaks might be.
it does.
And you're saying that it's showing no leaks at all.
It stayed, it got so low that it didn't matter. There was not a significant drops for us to pull the leaks.
No. I'm here, I got 500,000 gallons. I'm over here, I'm moving 500,000 gallons over to here. Did the 500,000 gallons show up?
Oh, on that way, I think we could. I'm not 100% sure how that would work in SCADA. I'd have to look at all the different trends they have available.
Yeah, but it's certainly that, to me, that's where you begin to find your underground lakes. Because if you got an underground lake, it's going right at the back of the aquifer. Some come up, some go down.
All right, Councilmember Stokes. Any comments? I just want to make sure.
What?
You'll wait.
Now maybe it's got this under control. I'm
Okay.
sure.
Okay,
I would like a copy of that graph.
I would
I
too.
don't think that hurt us to have. it.
Mm-mm.
No, and like I said,
We'll see how bad I
Well,
can't understand.
we've been pulling
That's
data
not-
for the past week just to really look at the trends.
Right.
But I missed the deadlines.
So it would have been in our packets and
Yeah,
people
okay.
would have been able to see it.
But we also didn't call the mild condition even until 9 o'clock Wednesday.
Right.
One last question on that. It seems like most of the large water users are on the east side, like Sul Ross, the school district. And when you asked to curtail it, we went to the middle school. So the middle school is one of the largest ones on the west end. Other than that, are we just not pulling up enough? Or is there, it seems like the large demand center would be on the east side, the Muskies. Is that true?
So there is a large demand on the east side. They have more storage capabilities and we haven't had issues with the wells coming from that field. The issues have been from the wells coming from the Sunny Glen that address the specific, so it's two planes and they don't cross. The city tried years ago, blew more water lines than anything. I have reached out to our engineers, just what, if we could pull from Muskies to feed to the west side, we would have been fine. But we can't move the water between the two sides of town. So our big users on the west side are the middle school, the hotels, and the city parks. And so we did ask each of the hotels, did you drain your pool, clean it and fill it back up?
Mhm.
We've really reached out to anyone checking off literally a 30-page list of what ifs, could it be this, could it be that?
Okay.
So the last item on the agenda for me is a legislative update. It was very interesting, especially to get a lot of the background stories on some of these Senate and House bills that were passed or that failed. The majority of the first part of the conference was really going over everything that failed. And the reason why they brought this up was for cities to be prepared for the next legislation, because a lot of these will most likely be up again. Especially when you're looking at the ETJ, when you're looking at some of the property tax,
ETJ.
the extraterritorial.
Jurisdiction, yes.
You got her.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes, acronyms. We're gonna banish acronyms.
So it was important to know, as a city, the ones that affect us, we could start actively working with our representatives, our congressmen, hopefully to curtail them. 2127 was a huge discussion, debate. This one is the regulatory act that does regulate us on certain things. What it doesn't do is we still have the ability to regulate massage establishments. We still have the ability to maintain our own roads, impose taxes and carry out any authority, especially expressly authorized by statute. These are the big ones they pointed out. We still have the ability to negotiate terms of collective bargaining. So these would be our 380s. And anything policy related to city employees. We could not enact ordinances or anything that regulated employment of other businesses. I know some of the bigger cities like sick leave policies and stuff like that, they were starting to look at that from their city perspectives. We can't regulate anyone who has a state issued license to breed, care, treat, or sell animals or animal products. We cannot regulate evictions or delivery of notice to vacate prior to an eviction. So some of these really don't pertain to us. The big thing that did come out of this law was that they have to notify us and give us 3 months to fix it. So if we do have an ordinance that conflicts with our state laws, we have 3 months to basically review it, change it, pass it again. So they can't just sue us. They have to actually give us notice to be able to do something about it. It does become effective September 1st, 2023. It only pertains to home rule cities. So huge regulatory on home rule cities. And of course, it affects anything under agricultural codes, business and commerce codes, finance, insurance, labor, natural resources, occupations, and property.
This is Death Star.
This is Death Star. So we all kind of joked and said Austin will be sued first. So we'll kind of wait from there. And then they kind of went over all the different sections. One of the ones that did pass was Senate Bill 2038, which does discuss and go over the ETJ. It does release an area by petition or election. So if someone was to petition and the council was to pass it, it would release them. But what was interesting about this one is in an area that is released from ETJ, especially like an annexation, it does not continue the ETJ, so it would stop. So whereas before, if we annex, we had that extra, that's gone now. So the reason why this one was important to everyone really was, as the cities are annexing, you're doing away with your ETJs.
Yep.
So then that's ultimately, because the other one did not pass 369, this one kind of was the, well, if we're not gonna get it all and done, we'll go this route, cities will annex, and then we'll just cut those ETJs out. So when we annex, this is one thing we do need to take into consideration. Another interesting one was the agricultural operations. Cities can't impose a requirement that applies to agricultural operations located in the city limits. So if I have 5 acres and I want to plant 5 acres of wheat, the city can't regulate me planting my wheat. Of course, there are exceptions, unless there are health hazards. There is a regulation that says the maximum is 12-inch height for vegetation. So that would kind of regulate some of it. But this one was interesting. A gentleman was growing corn in his empty lot. And so it narrowed it down to the state instead of just Dallas. But this one was interesting because we live in a rural area. If your neighbor starts growing hay for-
Corn.
Yeah.
Big cornfield there.
The plating and subdivisions change the plating review process. It does remove the 30-day, what they call the shot clock, where cities had 30 days to review and pass. It allows the delegation of the review to other staff members. It allows the city to actually develop submittal calendars. So if we have areas that we are replatting or subdivisions that are wanting to come in and build, this does allow us to start setting calendars instead of, well, you have 30 days, we have to get it through the process. It takes it a little bit longer. It also prohibits the city or planning and zoning from requiring any type of analysis, study, document, agreement, or similar requirement to be included as part of the plat application, development permit, or subdivision of the land, if not exclusively allowed by state law. That was one of the, we're gonna open it up for you, we're gonna make it easier for you, and then we're gonna take it back in and say, well, but you can't do these things. It does allow for a developer to request a third-party review of documents if the city does not inspect or act upon them within 15 days of the statutory deadline. Which is kind of funny. The way they explained it is, you know, you have your 30, plus we're giving you an additional 15. And then after the 45 days, 60 days, they can ask for it. Usually by then the process is complete. The one that we all cried about, the city finances, it was hopeful for a while that they would increase the procurement level from 50,000 to 100,000 to allow procurement to be easier. Especially in areas where, you know, we don't have very many people to compete with. It did not pass. So we are still required to go out for RFPs for competitive bid, being anything over 50,000. A lot of cities were hopeful for the 100. Some of the other big ones that really pertain more to my office, the tax rate calculation worksheets changed. So this will be fun for this year, learning the new steps that they've put in. They've recalculated the unused increment tax rate. So those will be new steps to pay attention to as well. And then, of course, calculating the voter approval for the unused increment tax rate has changed as well. So the 19-page form hopefully is not 30 pages now, but when that comes out, that's how we'll determine our tax rate. Some of the other things that I had talked about and brought up, of course, about the child care facilities, mandatory periodic review of homestead exemptions. Family care products are now tax exempt from sales tax. It went in to talk about the debt, and COs can no longer be applied for new stadiums, arenas, convention centers, or hotels. We've never done that, so it doesn't really apply to us. One of the benefits that came out of this in talking with the council and comments you guys have made is the city can now use real property transfers in 380 agreements. So we can provide a building to benefit us. So that was kind of nice. And of course, they extended the database requirements for cities. So we have a little bit longer time to report that. A lot with public safety. I know the governor, lieutenant governor, they were focused on property tax, schools, and public safety. We are now required to implement a peace officer wellness program. A lot of updates in how police departments report things, missing persons, victims of crime, domestic violence. One that we will have to look at is there is no longer local juvenile curfews. State law now prohibits that. So I do know that we have a local one that will have to go in and repeal. Or make it exactly the same verbiage as the state. Crime reporting has all changed. TCO, law enforcement agency accreditations. Police departments are now required to report all overdose cases. A lot of little things. Driver's license renewal, failure to appear or not paying fines. Those are now being made stricter, so you can't renew your driver's license if you don't go to court. Some of the other ones, just to give you an idea. I know the elections we didn't have to worry too much about. I told you about the retirement. This one was interesting, prohibiting sexually oriented performances. This one came out of Dallas, Houston, San Antonio area in regards to drag queen shows. And so they classified what is considered sexually oriented performance as far as any art performance that could basically have these kind of sexually oriented cybersecurity incidents. There's a lot. The last one I do want to mention, and any employees who are in the audience, any city device, TikTok is now banned. So this will be a public-wide statement to all of our employees that if you have TikTok on your phone, it is now banned by the state. And so it will have to be removed from your city phone. The only exception to it is law enforcement for investigative purposes.
On TikTok. So, okay, so do you have is this in a form that you can print it out easily and make it available to council? Or are you just going down a list from the state?
So I do have it in a PDF, but it doesn't provide all of the backup information.
Okay.
So I can provide you that.
Well, I don't want to add one more thing to your plate. But
Oh, no,
I'm not
it wasn't
suggesting
really
that.
informative. I think the biggest part of this conference and like I mentioned earlier is really anything that didn't pass, they've listed everything to look for the next legislation.
And I think they're covering our legislative updates that we get
Yes.
on our emails. they're covered in that.
So in the TML legislative email that you get on Fridays,
Right.
it does provide kind of the key ones that are important to look at. They kind of provided also a walkthrough of how to engage your city with your representatives, and I would love us to be some of these huge cities who have a staff that literally can do pies, graphs, charts that show you the real impact it has on the city. Some of these will have an impact on us, but we don't know to what extent. We don't have that type of personnel to monitor it. But looking at all the ones that didn't pass, specifically the STRs, which is short-term rentals,
Thank you.
looking at the properties and taxes, and they're still doing all their special sessions. Right now, they're opening up a special session. They're debating one or two and then they're closing. They're really focused on that property tax relief. That's a huge one. And then of course the school tax stuff. But I mean, it was about 9 hours of a lot of information. But it's fascinating to understand how these get put into place. And several of these are very targeted. Austin gets targeted a lot. And then San Antonio, Dallas, Houston. I do believe there was one representative that was banned from legislation this year for inappropriate behaviors. So that was fascinating to learn about, since the last time it happened was like in the 20s. But they provide a lot of information. Sometimes it's just hard to digest.
Right.
And what does it affect us? When they get to the populations over 250, I kind of sat back like, okay, doesn't pertain. But does it mean that next year it will be populations over, 30 and then populations under 30, and
Right.
they're definitely regulating this.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to the consent agenda, City Secretary.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight's consent agenda contains 8 items. Item 1, approval of June 1st, 2023 budget workshop meeting minutes. Item 2, approval of June 6th, 2023 regular meeting minutes. Item 3, approval of June 8th, 2023 budget workshop meeting minutes. Item 4, approval of June 13th, 2023 budget workshop meeting minutes. Item 5, approval of Larry Nichols to the place 5 position on the Hotel Occupancy Tax Committee. Item 6, approval of resolution 2023-06-17, a resolution adopting a budget policy for the city. Item 7, approval of resolution 2023-06-18, a resolution adopting a financial policy for the city. Item 8, approval of resolution 2023-06-19, a resolution adopting an investment policy for the city of Alpine for fiscal year 2023-2024.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion.
I make a motion to approve.
I need a second. Okay, let's vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Okay, consent agenda passes unanimously. All right, we're going to take a short break here before we go into information or discussion items. All right, so information or discussion items. Item number 1, Dawn, come on up.
I said,
If
okay,
you
you've
can,
already
just-
seen this. You got any questions? Okay,
Yeah, thank you for
Mayor,
getting into
Council,
the
thank you
packet.
for having me here. Don Wetterauer, Executive Director of the Alpine Public Library. And I have just a few things and we can get on. First slide.
Sorry, one second.
Go ahead and tell us about the first slide, Dawn.
The first slide was just me, my introduction. The next slide, took a little graphic about why we need libraries. And I thought, since this is budget season, I wanted to start with why we need libraries. And this is about 5 years old, but an unemployed man using the internet to apply for a job, reference librarian, this says helping a senior citizen with genealogy research, but we do more than that. We help senior citizens with Social Security, with Medicare, with all kinds of other stuff. Family saving money by borrowing DVDs instead of buying them. Teens at after school program and not getting in trouble. Kids signing up for summer programming. So that's kind of what we do. And I wanted to make sure you understand some of the things. The next slide. So APL offers free access to unbiased information, free educational resources. We help build community. We're transparent with all our services, and we contribute to increasing our economy. Just a few things about the budget. I wanted to let you know that for 2022, we got our allotment from the city was $40,000. Our allotment from the county was $42,000. And that covered about 30% of our budget. So the rest of it, we have to raise by fundraising, library sales, grants, and of course, individual donors. Now, the library's been around since 1947, and Alpine and the county have supported us for all that time. So I want to thank you for 70 years of supporting Alpine Public Library and the work that I hope we do with the community. Next slide. So Texas libraries in general, they offer over $1.6 billion in services that include educational programs, wireless internet access, books and digital media, research databases. Texas Public Libraries provide $967 million in economic activity and 11,000 jobs. And for every dollar invested in a public library, communities see a return of $4.64 in all of those things: access to resources, programming, services, and technology. Okay, the next slide. First thing I want to do is give you an update on our adult education program. We started our GED classes, the next slide, in April. It was a 10-week class. They just finished in June. We ended up registering 3 students, and they have 60 classroom hours studying. When they got to 40 hours, we did a progress test. And I'm really happy to say that all 3 of them had measurable skills gains, which is, really important when you're looking at Texas Workforce Commission grants. They really liked the classes. We tried to tailor the length of the classes down to people's working, life. And we had a comment that the classes weren't long enough. They wanted more. They liked the classes. They're taking a break this week, and they're going to continue probably through July and August. And I'm hoping that by the fall, they're ready. At least one of them is ready to take the high school equivalency exam. I do want to make a plug that we need instructors for English and social studies. The guy we had finished and wants to do other things. So a couple of other things I wanted to talk about was our service area is Brewster County, but there's also money in Jeff Davis County and Presidio County. So the library in Fort Davis and the library in Marfa, we kind of want to try to go together. And we've had people from Marfa asking about GED classes, try to get the 3 libraries together so we can kind of use the infrastructure that we've created with Texas Workforce Commission and get students from some of these surrounding areas. And in-person training is the best, but we can also do remote training for people from Terlingua or Marfa or wherever.
Don, do your instructors have any special capabilities or requirements?
And they're all required to be college graduates.
Okay.
And they are all required to have continuing education hours. And depending on what they're teaching, they have to have so many hours in the year.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a really good guy that's doing math and science now. He does 2 nights a week. And the other night was Thursday night, and we're gonna do social studies and English. We have some online programs that they can get on, and when they're on this one, they're approved to get classroom hours. So we're gonna really push that. So, okay, next slide. Summer programs. We're calling our summer program this year Better Together. And we want to think we have something for everybody. We have the Family Ties, which is basically family science nights, and it's for kids and adults. We have the regular summer reading program, which is Kids United. We have Tinkercad class, we have Cubelets crop class, and we also are doing Beanstack again, which is an online interactive reading program for both adults and kids. There's reading challenges, and whatever you do, you get prizes, and so something for everybody there. Next one. The Kids United program, we started on June 6th. Last week, we had Skins and Skulls, and Layla Spurlock from the Big Bend Ranch State Park was there. She brought animal skins and skulls that were found on the park, and we had a packed house. She also taught animal identification techniques, and she'll be back one or more times, I think, during the summer. Next one. And there's a typo on my slide. This actually starts on July 11th. Rogelio Career is a licensed.
Now 6 minutes. Do you want to extend it for?
Yes, please.
6 minutes already?
Mhm.
Oh my God. Okay, I can go over that one. He's going to do a workshop. It starts July 10th and goes to August 1st, and he's going to limit to 10 people. Next slide. We had a dark sky program in May with Dr. Maureen Frank from the Borderlands Research Institute that was well attended, but it wasn't good weather for nighttime viewing, so we didn't do that. Next one, we did a display at Earth Day. Next one, we had the May team program is Mario Kart tournament. We had a half a dozen kids in there playing with Mario and eating snacks on the big screen TV. Next slide. Other summer team programs we're going to have this week. We're going to have Build the Tower Challenge on the 21st of July, an escape room. And on August 10th, we're going to have Sharpie crafts. And we're also doing Saturday board games for kids 12 to 18. Next one. The Wasserman Ranch came to toddler time, and the kids always enjoy learning about animals and seeing what's going on with them. And we've also had visits from the Humane Society for that. Next one. Summer Science, Family Science Nights, and they're on Saturday nights. We had one in June. It was Family Mathematics Night. We had pentagrams, logical links, pentominoes, spirographs, geoboards, and about 30 people came. The picture on the right shows some of the spirographs that we made with our 3D printer. Anyway, we had older kids that managed the different stations. They had a good time, and they're anxious. They're going to help with the next programs. On July 8th, we're going to have Family Physics Night, and August 5th is Family Circuits Night. Okay, next slide. Fundraising activities. In March, we had the American Legion Fish Fry, and it was a great, well-attended, packed house. I can't say enough about the crew at the Legion. They work so hard. But anyway, and we didn't run out of food, but it came close. In May, we had a patio sale. And coming up, we're doing Dancing with Big Bend Stars on July 8th at the Granada Theater. Okay, next. We applied for a Texas READ grant for 2024. It's been recommended for funding, and we're waiting for approval from the Texas State Library and Archives Commission. They'll meet in August. We plan to work with classes, 4th and 5th grades, and our goals are to generate enthusiasm in reading, enhance literacy skills, support student social emotional learning, and encourage participation in library reading programs and technology classes. Okay, last thing. Our library expansion. We were approved for a grant from the Prentice F. and Aline F. Brown Foundation. We met our match for $100,000 from the Abel Hanger Foundation. We applied for a $100,000 furniture grant from the Tucker Foundation. And I'm really happy to say that I think we're going to start this summer.
That's great.
And that's it. I'm done. Thank you very much.
The library is impressive, all the services you offer. You can go out and rent or borrow pots and pans.
I know,
It's a sewing machine.
Yeah,
a notary, y'all have a notary.
Me.
That's a big deal in Alpine, 'cause I'm a notary. I did it for the sheriff's office. But now I'm going, don't go to the library,
Yeah.
that's a big
I have a lot of
service.
You guys do
Yeah.
a
I've
lot
had
in the
people from
community.
Marfa,
I know.
Fort Stockton,
Mm.
even from Presidio.
Yeah. That is
And
a
we're
big-
greatly appreciative.
And if you haven't been to the library lately, please come by for a visit and see what's going on.
Any comments? Okay, thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. All right, so Family Crisis Center, come on up.
It's Andrea.
Yes. I know Andrea.
Mhm.
We're in Lions Club together.
Yes, hello, everybody. My name is Andrea Tucker, I work for the Family Crisis Center of the Big Bend. I am the business admin assistant. So. Out of the $2,356.25. 36% of that goes to our insurance. And 37.6% goes to office expenses. 20.7 goes to office utilities and 5.7 of that goes to repairs and maintenance towards the building. And that's how we spend the funds that are given to us or allocated to the Family Crisis Center from the city.
Gio, can you put that pie chart up?
Sure.
So how much does the city allocate to the Family Crisis Center each year?
$2,356.25.
It's that specific?
Yes,
Quarter.
per quarter.
Oh, per quarter.
So we do have a agreement with them. It expires this fiscal year.
Okay.
And it is a tiered, 1 year was 8,000 something, and then it went up every year for 3 years. This year it expires. It's on the agenda for Saturday
Okay.
to be discussed,
To
all
be
the different
discussed.
ones that we have agreements or
Okay.
contracts
So that'll be
with.
one of the expenses.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Any
Any
other questions or
questions?
discussion? Okay,
I don't know, but the whole council knows that they've recently purchased the whole community center.
Yes.
That's gonna be a big deal.
Yes, and that is, our goal is 1 million and we're on the stride. We're about, I think almost 300,000.
Okay.
We made to our goal.
I
Okay.
also do want to point out that the city's contributions allows them to apply for certain grants, especially for domestic violence.
So is there a certain amount that we have to contribute to enable them to go out for a grant?
I don't believe so, but it's the partnership that the city is recognizing in this.
okay. Thank you. Thank you for all that you do. Andrea.
You're most welcome.
Thank you. All right. Okay, presentation by Grizz Adams regarding the need to change or update city utility ordinances. Come on up.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Council. My name's Bruce Adams. I am a proud landowner here in Alpine. I own half an acre, 3 lots at the corner of Nations and North Third Street. And my plans are to eventually retire here. Currently, I live in Bernie outside of San Antonio. Had the great pleasure of going to grad school at Sol Ross from 2016 to 2018. I'm a bit of a late bloomer and fell in love with this great town and I'm very much looking forward to being a resident of Alpine at some point in the future and being a part of the community. I have an account with the city for utilities and wanted to address the council tonight and humbly suggest that there might be an opportunity for people who are landowners within the city limits that don't have a residence, don't have a dwelling on the house, to be able to change the ordinance to make it a little bit easier for folks like me. So currently I pay $78.49 per month. The breakdown on that is $16.57 for water, $15.50 for sewer, and then $42.89 for trash, and then around $3.50 tax. sales tax, so a total of 78.49. My question or my humble suggestion would be that for properties that have a city account, but there's no dwelling on it, that an ordinance be created that would allow for a water only account so that any irrigation, xeriscaping needs that need to be met at a particular property could be met without incurring the cost of the trash and sewer, which obviously are not being used if you don't have a residence on the property. So I would be glad to field any questions that you may have.
So if you just send me, you're in Ward 5, so send me your information, we'll get it working.
Okay, I
Okay.
appreciate that. I'll
Yeah.
be glad to do that. Thank you very much.
I have a question for Megan. How about the software? Is it something that we can do, or would we need to dedicate somebody to do it by hand for something such as that?
So we could remove it as an item, but we would require some type of inspection before it was being removed. And there's also needs to take into consideration that we're not on individual bins. Our current ordinance reads that all residents and businesses within the city limits will be charged a waste disposal fee. So to
So that-
remove it, do you remove it from any access to disposal? Or we would have to.
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll have to work that.
I'll have a conversation with come back and we'll talk about what some options might be. and what it looks like.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, we'll go work it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, just shoot me a text and I'll go back with you.
Will do. Thank you, Mr. Hughes.
Okay, the next item is mine. Discussion regarding incentives for residents for xeriscaping and consider putting an ordinance in place to encourage such. So since we do live in the desert and we do want to conserve our water, the idea has been bounced around from other residents and I believe with the city manager of possible credits or some kind of incentives for families that do some sort of xeriscaping. So that would require an ordinance from council. We would want community input, but just to encourage people to start doing that, to conserve water.
What kind of incentives were you thinking or?
What were you thinking? Were you thinking like water credits, Megan?
So there's actually multiple ways to do it, and Darren actually has done some research as well.
Okay, good.
The biggest one that comes across all the cities, including like the city of El Paso, it's considered a rebate. So basically, if the resident was to go in, there would be a process they would have to follow. There would have to be definitely check boxes marked off. And they were to re-landscape and meet the requirements set by the city for drought specific plants and irrigation, stuff like that. The city would reimburse a certain percentage or up to an amount for their expenses, which would all have to be documented. Other places do a discount. I honestly don't think our software would be capable of that, but based off of your landscape and your water usage, you would get a discount for that. Others have different types of incentives. I know Darren brought to my attention one that I really love is the customer side shutoff valve. So for them to put in a shutoff valve on their side so that if they had a leak, they could shut it off and fix it and not be dependent on the city. Really, whatever direction the city wants to go, there is a wealth of options and opportunities. I know on the plant side, I did love the fact that Darren's example of Andrews, and there was one other city that I had seen, provide specifically what types of plant they can plant. So it's not like they could run out and buy whatever they want and put it in and call it xeriscaping. There would be more specifics to it.
Something native to the area, to the region. Darren, did you have more to add to that since you've done some research?
I had never heard of it and I was surprised that Andrews actually does something for that. So I learned something myself. And I think on their end, it was up to a $3,000 amount. a
Yeah,
rebate.
3,000 rebate, and it's a first come, first serve. They specifically had that in their policy. So if the city budgeted 30,000 for rebates, it would be first come, first serve. So up until 30,000 was gone, anything after that.
And they do it yearly?
I would need to call and ask them. I believe so, based on the way it's structured, they would have to allocate.
Was there not something that made it unlawful to give away water or something like that?
Can't give away free water, but you can discount. Yeah, we wouldn't be like canceling your water bill for you. You would
But
just-
I just, it's not considered any way giving, you know, even though it's considered a rebate, or, I mean, in actuality, that's what we're doing, giving them.
So the rebate wouldn't be through like the water, it would be an expense line item for basically expenses.
For them to zero scape for the cost of the rocks.
Yeah. The rocks, the plants, if they did an irrigation system, things like that. So
We'd
it
have
would
the
be
staff
actual-
to go out and check these yards and make sure that they didn't plant a plant, we didn't.
We would have to definitely put in protocols that could be easily checked and then verified.
I was gonna say, that's what worries me, is that there is an administrative overhead to it. And I think there was some in Arizona that went up to 1,000, so even earmarking 10 grand, which is not a small number, would only do 10 yards. So the administrative overhead, I think it would be a thing. And then I don't know, you know, even the expertise too, you finding a landscaper and somebody that can actually do the drip water systems and stuff like that.
No, they're gonna wanna go in there and do it. You know, I'm digging up my grass myself. And I am going to do all this stuff. And then y'all are gonna go, well, that wasn't good enough. Really?
Well, on the permitting side, irrigation systems are permitted, so they would have to have a permit and it would have to adhere to secret.
I'm sure Andrew has time to go look at somebody's bush in
Right, I
front of
think
that
that's
Andrew.
Make sure it's a legal plant.
Legal plant. I think it's a good idea. I mean, you've got whole neighborhoods in El Paso that do that. They aren't even given an option now when they build. Isn't that right? Is that right?
Correct. It is a city ordinance in El Paso that they have to be drought.
As much as I love to mow, you know, I get thirsty too. I would much rather have a glass of water.
I know from experience with El Paso, when we pulled up all of our grass to put rocks in, it was a 50% reimbursement or rebate on the cost. So, you know, we spent 5, we got 2,500 back.
All right, so there's some options. So I had that on tonight because I wanted council just to start thinking about it, and we'll come back to it again, maybe after the budget or before, whenever you think's best. All right, so that leads us to information and discussion item number 5, city manager.
Discuss possible lease of the neighborhood center, which is 607 West Gallego, to the Community Council of South Central Texas and or Women's Infant Children WIC program. I put this on the agenda to get some thoughts from the council. The building was previously leased by the Big Bend Community Action. It was a 10-year lease that didn't expire until 2026. Unfortunately, it wasn't followed or adhered to the best of our abilities. I finally did receive formal notification that Big Bend Community Action will be outdone at the end of this month. I did receive the keys today. I have been in the building. It's not in the worst conditions, but it's not in the best condition. The flooring is discolored, but I found out it is from when they had an operating kiln. And so it melted the glue and the laminate and changed it this purpley color. So you can see where they moved it throughout the building. The downside to this is WIC is currently in the building. WIC is in there twice a week. I believe Tuesdays and Thursdays, or just Tuesdays. So Big Bend Community Action subleased the building to them without our knowledge. Both parties, the South Central Texas and the WIC group, are interested in leasing the building. We would need to go in and do a little bit of cleanup and some minor maintenance. I would like to start working on an agreement for both of them to lease it, not one leasing from another, but both leasing it directly from the city, to include the upkeep and maintenance of the building. It was in the last contract, it just wasn't.
So is WIC being allowed to stay there even though there is no contract at this time?
They are currently allowed to stay there because they just moved all their stuff in. I wasn't gonna have them move it all out. They're on one side of the building. It's not to their fault, what happened. They have rewired, they have put in window units, they have a new phone system. They're willing to
do this.
They're willing to put in some upkeep.
So is there any liability involved since there is no contract? Should something, I mean,
Because they're not in there every day, I didn't feel like the liability was or high enough, I should say. So I would like it to go before council for a lease. They are technically operating under the other lease until the end of this month. And they are paying, or they did pay Big Bend Community Action a month.
So it's gonna be a net lease.
I haven't allowed the other group to move in because that's the larger part of the building. That does need to be.
So when you say net lease,
So then they pay a low cost. Okay, they pay us a fee. We don't have to maintain it, do anything. It is net all to them. They gotta cover everything. That's what it sounds like they're already doing.
are we talking another $1 thing or whatever? Because we have a lot of property. That I think the city's in a point where we need to start charging for these buildings, although I do agree that they're giving wonderful services to the community. We're in need.
It was $2 a year and we didn't get it. I've been told two different amounts that WIC was paying Big Bend Community Action. I'd like to keep it roughly at where they're at, which was, I believe, either 100 or 250. I don't think it needs to be significant if they're doing all the maintenance.
So you're gonna bring a business deal back for WIC, and then you're gonna propose a business deal for
The South Central.
Central Texas.
Yes, so what I would like, and the Bojorquez Law Firm has a very long list, is to basically have a co-ed agreement or a shared agreement. So they're both signing the same.
So they'll depend on each other? No.
They'll have to. because
If one goes, the other has to?
No.
Okay.
It's a shared facility currently.
Got it.
That's the bathrooms, the kitchen area.
Okay. Okay.
And also, if anyone is aware of anyone who works for the Family Crisis Center, to get a phone call. No one was there when I knocked on the door. But we currently have a number of boxes of their files. So it was also
Andrea.
shared with them.
Yeah, we're all.
Not Family Crisis, CASA, I'm so sorry. I looked over there. I looked over there. CASA, so we have a number of basically sealed case files.
I agree with Councilmember Rodriguez. We do need to do more than just $2 rent.
And even at 200, you're saying that would be combined rent for both?
200 each, right?
Each.
So they are paying their own utilities. Big Bend Community will cut them off at the end of this month. But the maintenance of the building is the important.
And I understand that, but majority of buildings that you rent downtown, they're paying their own utilities too and stuff like that. And they're paying a heck of a lot more than $500 a month.
I honestly, their utilities, I don't know how much are. I don't think they're very much because there's really not a lot of people in them. It would be 3 people. And then I'd like to make it affordable that they don't just back out and say, I want to do it, because then we have a really.
And they're both not-for-profits. Or I guess the business do.
But yes, to charge them something,
Mm-hmm.
and then work out a specifics when it comes to what is maintaining the building.
Yep.
Let's keep up with it. If they don't, then
Because it is definitely out of the 80s.
Yes.
Even a paint job would be good.
All right, any other discussion? All right, let's move on to item number 6, city manager.
Discuss possible options concerning the use of the old Alpine Schoolhouse located at 205 East Sol Ross. I put this on the agenda because I was reached out by the county as well as the Public Defender's Office. The county does provide a lot of office space for entities outside of their jurisdiction. So one of them being the Public Defenders. They're looking at a place to rent. They don't want short-term, they'd like a minimum 5-year lease. The Alpine Schoolhouse, no matter how much I cry, I would love to move everyone over there. But there's not the space for this whole building. And finance and utilities are too young. We just don't have the experience to separate them and move them over there. They reached out to us because they know that the space is open and it's there, and that we recently remodeled. I wanted to put this out there for council to kind of go through and think about it. I think we should lease it out because it has been sitting there since 2018. It has been remodeled, but not the whole building. There is a section of it where the cafeteria and kitchen are that have not been remodeled. that I would be very leery of opening up for people to utilize without having full inspection to make sure there's no gas leaks, because we turn the gas off. The other side to that is the building has been used for records. We have a large component or large portion of records over there. For us to move those records out would take some time to go through them. What can we destroy? What needs to be kept? What needs to be recorded? Geo has a staff of one to work on that type of a project. My other thought process is we can move them into the side that wasn't remodeled. The only downfall with that is the city would still need to have access, and I don't know if the public defender's office is willing to allow us just to come in to get our records.
Can't we move them back to where the city police, where they had them there at the old chambers,
There's no room.
that whole,
Can't you make that part of the lease?
And that's the
I
discussion
mean, if
I
they
can
want it that
have
bad,
back with
what
them.
kind of number are you thinking to rent that building, that redone building?
That would definitely be something I would talk to our city attorney about. What we legally can rent it for, or what, I don't know if there's like a.
I don't know what kind of funding. I don't know how they pay for anything.
How they pay for things. I don't know their.
I'd go to the discussion, we'll put them on the table. You know, it's, we're an entity, a separate legal entity, they're a separate legal entity, it's a negotiation back and forth. Get the best price out that you can.
Yeah.
That's a redone
that
building
would
they're
be
going
higher.
into.
they
Yeah.
get funds that go to them, and it's up to them how they, when we were at the DA's office, it doesn't matter what the rent is, you pay whatever you want.
So
You're
there
only
was,
gonna,
I didn't know if there was stipulation.
no, you're gonna get only so much from each county
Yeah.
that is sponsoring you, and it's up to you how you spend that on. Yeah, so
That's the deal.
we set the amount, and if they want it, they get it.
Well, then I will start working on the lease, and I mean, it's just access to the records. We would have to have access.
I don't see they could have a problem with that. Now, I could be wrong.
Just have it to where there's a lock that doesn't give us access to theirs, and I think they'd be fine.
You'd have to go during their hours. Unless you got a different door, can we get in a door?
Is
For
there a
this-
different door?
The part that's remodeled, there is a separate door to that part, but there's not a separate for the rest of the building.
Because these are our records. We don't want them in our records either. Not that I think they're gonna run in there, but.
But theirs is,
Let's go look. That'd be fun.
but theirs is confidential records because it has to do with defendants.
I know.
So theirs would have to be sure that
There's a security.
there is, no access by city personnel.
Well, and just the fact that you guys are all willing, I mean, it gives.
I think it's wonderful. I hope you got it rented. Sell it to them. Be fine with me.
I mean, my other option was to ask y'all to let us remodel the other half, and we could just all move over there and not be in St. Paul at all.
Maybe they could rent, maybe they could rent this.
We already put more money in that place than was allotted to begin with.
Mhm.
And we had all hoped to be able.
Okay,
Okay.
so you're
then
gonna
I
work
can
that
start-
for
I can
us?
Mm-hmm.
start working.
okay. All right, moving on to discussion item number 7, Councilmember
Number
Stokes.
7 is 9, discuss employee travel, training budgets, and discuss city leaders that have had city covered expenses and or reimbursement for optional and required training during the current fiscal year. I brought this up because when we gave y'all raises, I was under the impression that everybody still was having training. And talking to you and talking to Geo's having it, he's paying himself. Are you out money for training? Because neither one of y'all should be out money for training. My opinion is reimburse yourselves, find it. That's not right, because we don't do it to the water, we don't do it to anybody else. And like I say, I was under the impression that when we sent you to figure out how much a raise y'all could have, you found it, everybody was happy. You should not have to pay for your training. He should not have to pay for his training. Nobody else in the city has to. Is that right? That's all, that's my only question. I don't think it's right. Either one of y'all should have to pay or forgo training over money. That's not right. Y'all need it. Both of y'all need it. That's what I wanted to say.
Normally, I would agree, but we need to keep in mind that the raises were substantial. And she was asked to find that money wherever she could. There's only so many places you can
And I
find
agree.
it.
I agree with you there. But
So-
we didn't take it from city water guys training, did you?
But we didn't give them substantial raises.
Yeah, I mean, it's every department's by itself, and she went, and that's why some of it's missing, because she had to get from wherever she could because of,
Well, I
substantial
still think
raises.
y'all ought to pay yourself back, even if you don't do it again, have to do it again. But that's not right to take training from either one of y'all. That's my opinion. That's all I wanted. That's all. I was under the impression when y'all took them that everybody would still get their training and not have to pay for it. That's just my opinion. I could be super, super wrong. I understand that there's a finite number that you had to work with. I get that. I got it. I'm on one too. I live on one. But I
Councilmember
just don't think
Nance,
y'all should have to pay for training.
I don't really have much to add.
Councilmember Stevens.
I wasn't part of the discussion back then, so I have no idea. However, my view is if we ask people to go to training, we ought to pay for it. It's part of a city responsibility. That's my view. But I said I'm not part of that discussion about where the deal was. We expect Megan to manage the budget,
I know.
so. I said, I don't know, so.
So it's a catch-22. Pay your stuff back.
Do you have any
I
discretion,
don't know
Minnie?
where.
Yeah,
Yes, that I get trained with. I use mine for training. Sure do.
Megan, what's your
Like your
thoughts and
color
opinion
book?
on that?
I think unfortunately with the raises, the flexibility side was we would have to decrease other parts
So you think you should pay for your own training, is what you're saying?
and plan accordingly for next year.
I definitely would
I
like
just,
to see it in
I
the budget
personally
for
don't
next
feel
year.
comfortable taking it from other departments. I mean, we got significant raises. And that was the compromise. But I do think that, I mean, we don't want to discourage the training side. We just need to plan better for next fiscal year to put all of what needs to be. Right?
For 23, 24.
And
Gio,
I
what's your
agree.
opinion?
Agree.
I mean, if it's, the same thing across the board and no one's taking it out of, the administrative travel and training, I think that's fair.
That you pay for your own training?
Yeah, as long as nobody gets to take it.
Well, if y'all both have, I'm sorry. I thought that those raises would be adjusted so that nobody did without. And that's on me. That was here. That obviously wasn't in a huge ass discussion. Ooh, not supposed to cut. But that's my thought. I just don't think y'all should have to pay for your own training. Y'all's training keeps us going.
No, I agree, and I want to make sure that we do support all our employees.
I
It
know,
was just
I
that
know.
the raises were more. than-
Okay.
And I agree just what you're saying, and it wasn't your all's fault, it's council's fault, those questions were not asked. We didn't take the time to go through it slowly and ask, what is this going to do, or where are you getting it? You were just told, find it. And it's not fair to you, and it's not fair that y'all are having to pay your own, I agree on that too. But I think we should take the blame for that. We didn't take the time to ask the questions we needed to.
I
And to
found the
fully-
money just from.
You did,
within
but
our
that
budget.
took everything else, and we didn't question it.
So let me make sure I'm hearing you right. So you want to look at it again for the 23, 24 budget to see if we can cover some training at that point?
Well, we would have to because you have it as one of your requirements for him to get a certification and to go to the TML conference.
Okay.
But
Maybe
you have to
it's-
keep going to these things too. I know that yours is a time management, because we need you here, just like when I talked to you, that you took your whole training and worked on our water issue. I get it. That's hard to juggle, but you've got to have that training too, because as much as we depend on Gio, we depend on you to go hear all that. Because I don't want to go to all of them, so, So anyway,
Okay.
that was just my thoughts. I just wanted to discuss it and now we have, so
Good.
I'm good.
Good. All right. Okay, moving on to discussion item number 8. Councilmember Stevens.
So, thank you. I just wanted to talk about, as we talked about in the last budget meeting, number 3, about what the go forward plan is. Because we're gonna have the 4th workshop on Saturday. Unfortunately, I can't be here because I gotta be in Washington DC for a conflict. It was set a long time ago. But then we're supposed to, according to our paperwork, it says on July 5th, we're supposed to have a draft proposed budget filed with the city secretary. And I don't believe we have any meetings scheduled for that. And then it says July 13th, budget notice summary in the paper. Yet it's not clear to me, we will even have settled on what the budget is.
So that's tentative, based on the conversations and the input that's been provided by both council and the public. Moving forward, before every city council meeting, we will meet prior to the council meeting.
Okay,
That was determined based off of all of not only the employees' calendars, but the feedback I'd gotten from council as well. And this was prior to you getting on
that's
board.
okay.
But you didn't say you'd be here for the meetings. It would be easier that we just meet before every meeting, about 3 o'clock, and we do the budget side and then go into a regular.
So that would be then July 11th,
Yes.
where there'll be the opportunity for first look at the budget.
So it will actually be filed a proposed budget. It's just the first draft. It's not the fully, like, we'll have to have conversations and cleanup and stuff like that.
Okay.
But July 5th, we'll have something available to everyone to see, because then this will start additional conversation.
Yeah,
And then it gives you plenty of time, till the July.
so July 11th meeting, we'll have a budget discussion at 3 o'clock.
Yes.
And then the next one will be July 18th at 3 o'clock, which is literally the next week because we're not meeting the first Tuesday of the month because that's 4th of July. So that'll be those meetings. And then the next meeting would then be August 1st. Okay, that's also the date we're supposed to talk about tax rates.
So we should have everything from the appraisal district. And as
Okay.
long as the form hasn't become convoluted and
Yeah, all that fun stuff.
that should be fairly easy to put together.
Okay.
Let's go back to those dates. What were they? July.
11th at 3 p.m.
So it's the regular or special city council meetings.
At 3 p.m.
Yes.
And that's open to the public? Is it like a workshop?
So yes,
Okay.
Will it involve numbers?
And then council will be right after that.
Okay. Council at 5:30,
And then July 18th.
July 18th. So at 3 p.m. again on July
Yes.
18th.
August 1st, August 15th.
Wait a minute. August 1st.
All at 3 p.m.
Yes.
And August 15th.
15th.
Yes. After the August 15th meeting, we'll sit down again and discuss if we need to start having called meetings.
After the what meeting?
August 15th.
After August 15th, because we have to have it approved by the 15th of September. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I think in my mind, given those are gonna be basically 2-hour sessions, that's where we're gonna wanna make sure that we understand what the big rocks are, what the little rocks are, and how much money we got left over for little rocks. So my sense is those are gonna probably be fairly light city council agenda meetings. Because I think we're gonna go right from 3 o'clock into 5:30,
Yes.
and we don't want to be here burning the midnight oil. Because 3 to 9 is really a long time.
It's too
Okay.
long.
So what latitude do we have as council? Because our current agenda item process is we all dump our stuff to Geo and say, Geo, Megan, go figure it out. And then the agenda shows up. Okay,
Gee, I would say no.
well, but I think it's probably worthwhile.
It's not calling him.
Well, or we still have business conduct, you know, as a
It's not
city.
the little,
So
not the little stuff.
it is maybe a protocol we might want to adopt for those meetings is we put all our stuff in, Geo goes through and then send it back out to us and say, hey, given all this, this is probably 2 hours worth of stuff. Is there anything we can push
To the next one.
to the
Yeah.
next meeting so that, so
I
because
agree.
normally you kind of get it all by Wednesday, 5 o'clock,
And
that's
there's
our
time to
deadline.
push it.
Can we all say, we're gonna respond to Geo by Thursday? Would that work for you?
So send out the agenda,
So-
draft agenda.
Yeah,
Send it out to us and then we all gotta scramble and say, okay, Geo, off.
Right.
Okay.
and I did that with Geo this week. I pushed some things to the July 11th meetings. It was already so long.
Yeah,
And if
Yeah,
you
so it
haven't heard
works
from
for-
us from Thursday, don't worry about trying to get it.
Well, if you'll
get-
include me
we
on
know
those
what we need to
emails,
do.
I
Yeah,
can tell
by all
you
means.
if it's something that we're already working.
yeah. by all
Okay.
means.
So I can respond with, hey, Mayor, this is actually something we're already looking at. We're gonna postpone it till.
You want the agenda Wednesday at 5.
Well, no, my view is we submit all our stuff
That's
to you
right.
Wednesday at 5 with Megan on the list, so you all both know what's going on. Thursday, as early as you can, send it back out to us so we can redline if it looks like it's gonna be too long, take stuff off and only say, only the important stuff we're gonna focus on, and the rest we're gonna push to later on.
Mhm.
Okay, because my sense is we got challenged, we gotta go work, and so we
Right.
gotta go figure that out together.
Figure out which are most important for right then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, and if we're gonna fall on our sword over it, okay, we fall on our sword.
Well, I
Okay.
think if we get items, contracts and all that, and we can get them out to you prior, like
Yep.
a week prior,
Yep.
you can provide your feedback so I can get with the attorney.
Yep.
And those can be consent items and not actual discussion or.
And
Yeah.
keep on the information and discussion, let's not have the library, the crisis center and all them for right now.
Yeah, for the next 2 months, we take off all the information stuff right now, unless someone really wants to get a board item up, but I mean, Don's got great stuff. It's just. We gotta focus our priorities. Okay, so that work?
If we're
That
working on
works.
something, I can just provide that.
Okay, yeah, so that's why I wanted to kind of walk through that one, so unless there's something else, I'm done with item number 8.
All right, so Councilmember Stevens, item number 9 is yours.
Okay, item number 9, so, and I've kind of put some thoughts together, lots of discussions about short-term rentals. You know, they're great opportunities for property owners to maximize the return on the investments. There are over 70 short-term rental properties that are currently enrolled in the city. I was amazed at that, but not all of them are active. The STRs do supplement about a dozen traditional hotels in Alpine. The majority of short-term rental property owners take great care in improving their properties, maintaining them, and providing excellent services to those who pay for the property. I added up all the stuff, Megan, that you gave us, and it was amazing to me, short-term rental property owners pay about $85,000 in short-term or in hotel occupancy tax funds based upon their rentals, or it's about 8% of hot funding received by the city. That's the good news on STRs. Let's go on the flip side of STRs. There have been situations where STR users have not been good guests due to noise, trespassing, trash, general rudeness. Most situations have been quickly resolved, but some have not. And I know on our property, there have been people in short-term rentals around us just come straight up the driveway with their motorcycles, want to look at the view and all that, says, hold it. It says private property. Oh, we don't care. You know, and so we've got some things to work. Now, they all get worked in the place where they came from. I just talked to the owner and the owner says, consider the issue solved. The Big Bend Sentinel recently posted an article about state legislative proposals that failed to pass regarding city rights relative to short-term rental regulation. Now that we have a city attorney on board, not in July, August, or September, but after that, I think it's probably worthwhile that we ask them to give us an update on what we have as authority to balance short-term rental needs, because those are great, but also make sure we're not compromising our property and resident owner rights as well. So I'll put that in the October agenda. I just wanted to kind of bring that up because it's one that keeps coming up, and I think it's worthwhile we're going to talk about.
Sounds good.
That's all I have unless someone wants to add to it. Nope.
Well, the only thing I would actually add on there is I spoke to a friend of Martha, and Martha actually charges commercial rates for STRs that don't have homestead exemption. So like trash and things like that. So that would be an option to look at.
There's another one.
Their annual fee is also $250 more than ours. We charge 100 and they charge $350 annually.
Yeah, okay.
To better cover the administrative side of things, because we spend a lot of time on this.
That's a good point.
Good things to consider.
Good stuff.
Okay, so Councilmember Stevens, item number 10.
Okay, I know there's an action item a little bit later on roads and stop signs. But part of Daryl's analysis says, hey, 25-mile-an-hour speed limit within Alpine probably makes sense. At the last council meeting, we talked about that. There seems to be general agreement about the concept. I will tell you in Ward 5, I've got some who want a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. I have others who said, leave the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit alone because I can't handle it. Okay, I got it. But generally, there's agreement 25-mile-an-hour seems to be reasonable. That said, there are some streets where a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit would not seem to make good sense.
Which is why it's not an ordinance for this meeting.
I'm sorry?
which is why it's not an ordinance for this.
I understand. Okay, so one of the location is the main road going out to Alpine Country Club Estates off Highway 67. To go
Sure.
25 miles an hour there wouldn't make sense. Others believe that Brown, which is a major thoroughfare between 118 and up to Loop Road, probably doesn't make sense to make that 25 miles an hour either. With that in mind, I printed off a handy dandy map. Okay.
Good now.
Okay, and what I would suggest is for your ward, since you're the expert about your ward, if you would, okay,
Nice, thank you.
go ahead and put a red line on the streets that you don't think should be 25 miles an hour, leave it at 30,
What you don't want.
what you don't want. So put a red on what you don't want to be 25 miles an hour.
But wasn't that one of the issues that we wanted something to be more uniform?
We want it to be uniform. However, I just talked about Ace Road, City Road. Doesn't make sense to make it 25 miles an hour.
There's also the consideration for the schools.
School zones,
If
okay?
we already have one now that's 20 and we go 25, does it go up?
Well, it would, and in my view is school zones like over at the middle school or elementary school.
Right.
Leave it 20,
Okay.
okay? So all I'm trying to do is pull together an integrated database and would come back with that integrated story. I'd spend some time with Daryl, suggest that Daryl and I go talk to the school board and make sure we get their input. And so what I'm looking for you is to say, hey, anything you don't think should be 25 miles an hour, put a red line, leave it at 30. If you'd like to highlight what you think should remain 20,
That's
make that a different color
It's not a-
and get it back to me. And we'll
Right.
talk about that going down the street.
Okay,
Make all of.
Well, you
what
do see all over Facebook, if they want us
Make
to
all of. what
stop
you-
this right here, and we can't do
We gotta do
that,
that.
am I right?
That's
yeah,
exactly.
we can't.
We once again say, we don't control those roads.
So
I don't think people get, we don't control Loop Road, am I right?
Correct, that's-
They don't.
We don't control here, we don't control,
118,
Any state
Yeah.
roads.
we just don't. And
Yeah.
we can't just go change the sign.
that's correct. Now,
You
how it
could,
also,
but that would be.
Okay, well, we're
Yes.
not gonna do
we're not
it.
gonna do it.
And we just need to reiterate
Yes,
something on Facebook.
Maybe I'll do one of those little
Probably can't do
videos.
it.
Yeah, I'll do one of those short videos. I'll do it tonight.
so the other thing that I think is important, we talked with Daryl. Given we come to conclusion about 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, there's only a bazillion speed limit signs in the city of Alpine. There is the expensive way to do it, that's change all the metal. There's the better way to do it, get decals and plaster them up.
Yeah,
And in my view, that's far more effective, and Daryl and I will go work that because he's already been off working it. Okay, so we'll come back in the future. It will not happen in July, August, or September,
right.
okay?
Yeah.
But I just wanted to kind of bring everyone up to follow up in terms of what's going on for our last meetings. That's all that I have.
All right, everybody good?
We're good.
Okay, so let's move on to action items. Okay, so we've already done action item number 1 regarding Skyway Gardens. Now we're on to action item number 2, city manager.
Approve the first reading of ordinance 2023-06-01, an ordinance authorizing the installation of additional 4-way stop signs at the intersections of 8th Street and Ross Avenue, the intersections of 8th Street and Avenue A, the intersections of 7th and Hendricks Avenue, and the intersections of 8th Street and Del Rio Avenue.
Okay, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I need a second.
Second, it,
Okay, any discussion?
my view is the experts live in Ward 1. That's Judy's ward.
I want to thank Daryl because this was Daryl. I called Daryl and said, these people are calling me, and I mean, I would drive and they'd stop my car. Can we have a stop sign here? Because it nearly went to a house. That started the whole thing. Daryl took it on, did all the work, and I went, oh, okay, this looks good. But this is needed. If we start here, it's going to make it easier in all these others.
And Daryl is the expert, I feel.
Absolutely. You can do a ride along with Daryl.
Actually, because
No, not the backseat. Okay, any other discussion? All right, let's vote. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Passes unanimously. Action item number 2. All right, so action item number 3, city manager.
Approve resolution 2023-06-20, a resolution appointing members of the Alpine City Council to ex officio positions on city boards, commissions, and committees.
Okay, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I need a second.
Second.
Discussion. Okay, Councilmember Stevens.
So this says, council members do not vote, which I'm wildly supportive of. There are lots of rules about what ex officio means. And I have no earthly idea whether we're inferring that we are part of quorum, not part of quorum. I have no idea where we are from a discussion standpoint. My personal opinion, I think it's great that we have members of council participating with boards and commissions. But in my opinion, we are there to provide support. It's really them to go do it because we're the ones that get their recommendations and comments. And I think we really need to define what that means because I couldn't find it anywhere. And I read all the ordinances. So that's kind of where my headset is. I'm pretty willy-nilly on it relative to saying go forward, but I do think we need to define it because it is unclear.
It
That's
doesn't
fine
hurt.
with me. I
yeah.
know, one of my big things was I get in a discussion and I vote on it in one of their meetings, then I come on here and re-vote for it. And I don't think that was ever needed. So what you're agreeing with.
I thought we were always not supposed to vote.
Now, yes.
Now it
Yeah.
says not vote.
Now we
So
don't.
when
vote.
we changed the boards and commissions and made them more structured, we put the ex officio position that isn't allowed to vote. Prior to that. a
And that's what the
council
ex
member
officio
served-
means?
Yes.
Not voting.
Prior to that, the city council member did vote.
Yes.
Yeah, so ex officio is defined by the organization that's creating the ex officio. Some ex officio members vote. We've clearly said we're not going to vote, which I'm wildly supportive of.
We can't just change the verbiage and it's not be an ex officio. Is that
Be
easier?
a non-voting member.
Well, we already have it. If this particular resolution says do not vote. Okay, now, however, ex officio, the technical term, no matter where you look, says the member has all of the rights as if they were a member of the board. That includes
Oh,
putting agenda items on. That includes everything.
Discussions.
And where I thought council was, we want to make sure that a member of council supported one of the boards. And making us ex officio, unless we define it as here's what we can't do, gives all of us rights on that agendas and everything else. And I just don't think that's right. That's my
I don't think
concern.
it is
don't think
either.
we
I don't
should-
think that's what we went into it to do.
That was my presumption, but that's what ex officio means.
I don't think we should do anything but maybe take part in the conversations, but not be a part of the quorum, not vote and follow. what
Yeah.
you're saying.
So if we just change it and we're not ex officio, what do we say? A non-voting.
No, you
I
can
would-
be ex officio, but we would define what ex officio meant.
For the city of
Specifically,
Alpine.
does it apply to quorum? Does it apply to agenda items? Does it
Okay.
apply to? We would break it down.
And how much does that take to do that, Gio? It changes the whole ordinances?
It's an ordinance.
No,
No, I don't think I changed the ordinance.
just add it.
I think this is the resolution. So I'm trying to get to the resolution here. Okay. The resolution right now specifically says, got it.
The ordinance also provides that the ex officio members do not vote.
That's correct. The ordinance says that. So pursuant to chapter 16 of it's the duty of the city council to appoint a member of the Alpine City Council, each board member, commission, and committee. We agree with that.
Right.
Each member who serves on a board will serve as an ex officio capacity and will not have the privilege of voting nor any other rights associated with a typical ex officio member. If we make that amendment, I'm a happy camper. And I think we all are.
That's
based
fine
on what
with
we're
me,
talking about.
yes, yes.
It doesn't hurt to clarify things.
That's kinda where I'm at.
To,
Yeah.
yeah.
Particularly since someone already voted and shouldn't have voted, and that was not the intent, I don't think, of council. So if we, because where I thought we were trying to do was, we're trying to say, hey, here's the boards and commissions, here's the assignments, well, agreed. So we have a motion and a second, correct?
Yes, we do.
Okay, then I would like to propose, and this is just a resolution, it's not an ordinance. Then I would like to propose an amendment to the second whereas to add the words nor any other privileges of a ex officio member
Amendment to,
Got it, Gio?
to the second whereas.
Yes,
You got that, Gio?
I did.
Yeah, he said yes.
Okay,
Thumbs
and
up.
Councilmember Nance, we have not heard.
I mean, I just view it as, I work closely with Ms. Cantrell, so working with the chairperson, you know, you're still getting the voice of the board on there.
Yeah, well, I would expect that.
Still have to, when you come back in here, then you've heard all of there. If there's questions up here, then we're in there. That's what I thought we were supposed to do. And now I got on this board and I'm voting and I was like, I'm double voting on this. stuff. It didn't feel right. I don't know. I was just thinking,
Was there a second on that?
Not yet. Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion on the amendment? Okay, let's vote on the amendment to add this to second whereas. All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, the amendment passes. Now let's go back to the motion. We get a motion and a second on that, so let's vote on the main motion as amended. All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Good deal. All right, we're almost there. City council.
Mine are real quick. Happy birthday, Karen. She left. Thank you, Andrew and Dawn. Thanks, Daryl, for helping me get these stop signs and stuff. Thanks, Megan, for working with the water issues while you were at this training. Yeah, it was simple.
Councilmember Rodriguez. Councilmember Nance. Councilmember Stevens.
Just one item, Museum of the Big Bend expansion grand opening is this Thursday, Friday, and I just want to thank Megan for helping Eddie get up there and work the streets. I know he's working it tomorrow with his, and he has a crew of one as of today. Two guys are out sick, but he's gonna be up there tomorrow. Big deal from the Museum of the Big Bend. It's, I don't know the final numbers, but it's close to a $10 million addition to the museum. And all the big orders are gonna be in, so thanks for me.
All
All I
right,
got.
and that's it for me. All right, so we are adjourned.
I'm going to get grandkids.